Welcome to the InfoGov Hot Seat vodcast, featuring candid interviews with practitioners, consultants, and solution providers on hot topics in the information governance industry. Here's your host, Jim Merrifield.
Well, hello and welcome to the InfoGov Hot Seat. I'm your host, Jim Merrifield, and with me today is Mike Salvarezza. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, Jim. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, and everyone, whoever's watching this. Great to see you virtually, even though I can't see you. But great to have everyone here.
Yeah, for sure. It's always great to have a conversation with you, Mike. I know you wear many hats, but most recently, I know you've been working with Arma down in Houston and on a number of initiatives. But most recently, I know we connected down at InfoCon2024 down in Houston, and you had plenty of conversations. I know you participated in a keynote panel, also interviewing the keynote speakers after day one and day two. So I wanted to get your take on some key takeaways from the event in general.
So that's a great question, and because there's so much going on there. I think that the experience of being on stage with the keynotes was really inspiring because they all had a very interesting perspective on things. Phil Plait, as the opening keynote, he was the astronomer that talked about data governance and the work that he does. He's a really eloquent speaker, and he's a very passionate astronomer. The topic that we asked him to speak on was something that was outside of his comfort zone a little bit. And he thanked us afterwards. He really thanked us for bringing him not only to the conference, but sort of challenging him to think about that aspect of his work, which is the data governance of the information that they use to do all their science. And I just really enjoyed having that conversation with him. But the takeaways, I think, if you look at the conference as a whole, there are clearly some themes that everyone is grappling with, right? Everyone is talking about artificial intelligence, right? And they should be. I think artificial intelligence is a transformative technology. It is something that's going to affect so many businesses, organizations, jobs, processes. And information governance and records management is included in that set of things that are going to be affected. And I think what seemed to come out of the sessions that I saw on artificial intelligence was that while it is perhaps seen as a bit of a holy grail or an easy button, I'll press the AI button and all your worries are going to go away. That's really not the case, but it is going to be able to solve some of our longstanding challenges in this field. So I think there's great optimism there. There's a lot of, as you might expect with anything that's new, a lot of concern over governance and how do we implement this and where is this technology going? So a key takeaway from me on the AI front is it's here to stay, and this community, the IG community, is extremely well poised to benefit from it. The other thing is Microsoft continues to dominate as a platform, not just as an office productivity platform, but here we're talking about a compliance and governance platform for data and information. And while that is the case, and so many people are using or adopting Microsoft O365 or Purview, whatever the tools are, there's still struggles in terms of better understanding those tools and those capabilities, implementing them, figuring out how to actually extract the value from those platforms. So there were a number of sessions that talked about that, and I think they're on target. I think that Microsoft is the dominant player, will be the dominant force, but perhaps a message that might go back to them is, we need to do a better job of educating on how to use it, because it's like your phone, right? There's a million functions on that phone, and you use 10% of them. It's the same thing with Microsoft. There's so many capabilities there, and I think we need to get people to embrace all of it more effectively. So that's another one. I think that topically there are themes like that, and they were evident in Houston. But I think one of the things if you don't mind me rambling on here, Jim.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think what is starting to emerge from not just InfoCon, although it was on display at InfoCon, is the expanding influence of Arma and where Arma is going as an association. I would say that Arma International and the association as it stands today is not Arma from 5 years ago, and it's not what Arma is going to be 5 years from now. So, the fact that we had ILTA in Houston, the fact that we have added a new conference to the schedule, InfoNext, the fact that we are working more closely with the federal government, the fact that we are forging alliances internationally with RIMPA and other like-minded associations, and the fact that Arma is leading the way on these things is positioning Arma as a potentially a significantly powerful voice in the world of IG and records management. And I think that was on display in Houston.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, there's so many events now, not only events, but there's a lot of buzz. I know I've had tons of conversations since the event, all really positive. Where's the next conference? When can I connect again? Everybody's looking forward to the next few that we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. But I wanted to talk about, I think it's interesting around Microsoft, what you mentioned, because you're right. I mean, Microsoft, who doesn't use Microsoft these days? You either use Microsoft or Google, right? And most corporations use Microsoft, and a lot of organizations, law firms, corporations, with artificial intelligence, there's a decision to be made. Do you go down the path where you start subscribing to a few different AI technologies like GPT-4 or, some other platform while you wait for Copilot to be, I guess you could say, mature? But with Copilot, where Microsoft has an advantage over all these others AI tools is that it's already integrated into Office, right? It's integrated into the way we work. But I think you hit the nail on the head there, where Microsoft, or maybe us as for practitioners in general, need to educate ourselves around how to utilize Purview and how to deploy Copilot in a safe way. There's all these readiness assessments that consultancies are offering out there. So, and again, Arma, as you said, is leading the charge there. We have a nice partnership with Cadence, right? Cadence Solution is doing all kinds of Microsoft training, Copilot readiness assessments. There's online training, there's Purview training, there's Compliance Center training. So again, I think this is an exciting time. And I agree with you. I think Arma from 10 years ago is very different today, and it will be very different 5 years from now, gaining lots of momentum. Again, looking ahead into 2025, we have right at the get-go a few events that I know you're a big part of, especially with the planning. And the first event is actually in February around the federal government. There's a federal government seminar. Would you like to talk a little bit about what that seminar is? What's the reasoning behind it, where it is?
Yeah. And I would say that seminar really undervalues it. The title of the event is the Federal Government IG Summit. And the intention here is to bring together as many IG thought leaders and practitioners from across the agencies in the federal government, all of the departments of the federal government, to come together for a day to talk about the very real challenges that the federal government has with regards to information governance. The federal government is really in a digital transformation process that, maybe some other organizations are a little bit further down the road. But if you think of an agency like NARA, for example, National Archives, up until recently, their intake was paper. That's what they were managing. That's what they were storing. That's what they were preserving. And they've completely gone digital now. Their mandate is that they will not accept paper. They will only take digital input. But think for a moment what that means to the National Archives. They are tasked with preserving the records of this country forever, right? You want to look at their retention schedule. It's forever. And paper form. That's one problem. But in the digital world, now that you're getting, terabytes and petabytes of data coming at them and trying to discern what needs to be saved and preserved and the problem of moving those files forward as technology changes, is PDF going to be a thing 100 years from now? So those are very real concerns. And NARA has put very specific requirements out to the rest of the agencies. And all of those agencies are struggling with, how to actually do this. All of the things that private sector companies struggle with, the government is struggling with that as well. So we've designed an event. It's February 27th. It is in Virginia at the headquarters of a company called Carasoft. Carasoft is I guess best described as a government procurement broker, but they also deal with software and technology and that kind of stuff. It's going to be at their headquarters. It's going to be a full day event. We're going to have a keynote speaker. We're going to have 8 different sessions. We're going to have roundtables and panel discussions. And really the intention is to start to get more uniformity, more community, more, helping that group really solve the problems that they're struggling with. So that's that one single day, but it's the first of what is envisioned to be a whole series of federal government efforts. And I'll just say one last thing, Jim. Arma has formed a council of federal government thought leaders to help drive this. So we have people from the Department of the Interior or the DOJ, OMB, NARA. And recently, that group has been involved in providing input to both the Democrat and Republican side of the House Oversight Committee on a bill that is being introduced to strengthen the mandate for better information governance. So if we're sitting at the table with the federal government and helping shape legislation, that's a huge thing for all of us.
Yeah. Doesn't get any better than that. Especially, everybody follows suit with the federal government, both in the private sector, public sector. So I can't wait to hear some takeaways from that event. I know it's the first of many, but again, there's a lot on the docket there. You certainly whet our appetite for that event. So I guess if you're down in Virginia or you're working in the federal government, you better be at that summit, not seminar. You better be at that summit.
You got to be there. So it's going to be a must-attend event, I think.
Awesome. So shortly thereafter, I know you'll be at Legal Week in New York, and I know you have a few sessions there that you've curated and put together. You want to talk about those sessions as well?
Yeah. So Legal Week is it's a conference run by an organization that is not Arma. However, Arma has partnered with ALM to curate these 3 sessions. They typically occur as sort of a pre-conference track of sessions that happens on the day 0 of the conference, if you will. And yes, we have curated 3 sessions. And so why did we do that? Well, Arma has been partnering with ALM to provide this content. And this is another example of where Arma is showing up in places where it, is able to extend its reach new audiences, reach new suppliers, and really expand its influence. But it's not just about being there. It's about what are we talking about? We're talking about information governance. If you ever attend Legal Week, there's an awful lot of e-discovery technology there, and there's an awful lot of pure legal stuff, contract management, that kind of stuff. But if you go around and you talk to people and you ask them what's information governance, they kind of look at you and say, I'm not sure I know what that is. So our mission is to help elevate their aptitude around what information governance is, what proper governance looks like. And from a legal perspective, they should have absolute deep interest in that. So the sessions that we're producing will help with that mission. One of the sessions is about, the relationship between compliance and governance and legal and IT. And I think conversations like that at Legal Week are very.
Yeah, no, for sure. I will say too, we had a similar conversation, I think, at ILTA over the summer. And, I told you I was in a room full of CIOs, and one of the hot topics was around information governance, and they were just looking for direction. Where to start? Is there a model? And I said, yeah, by the way, there is a model. It's called the IGIM. It's under Creative Commons. It's free on the Arma website. So a lot of times, to your point, it's just spreading the Arma brand around, because we are the leading information management, information governance association. But again, we can't expect everybody to just know who Arma is or what information governance is or how you can kind of jumpstart your programs. We have to kind of get the word out. So yeah, partnering with ALM is huge as well. So now let's talk about the big event, right? Our own InfoNext event in the spring. I know that's in the end of April in Savannah, Georgia. And I know, Mike, that's an event that is near and dear to your heart. So tell us what we should expect in Savannah.
Wow. I mean, that is an event that is near and dear to my heart, because if you're watching and you don't know, but you're familiar with the MER conference from years ago, the MER conference has become InfoNext. So that long heritage of excellence that could characterize MER really has been brought over to InfoNext and elevated to even higher levels. InfoNext in Savannah is all about thought leadership and strategic planning. The overarching strategy, if you will, that Arma is pursuing here is that at InfoNext in the spring, we talk about strategy, where technology is going, where IG is going, what should we be planning for, what should we be anticipating, and how should we be developing our strategies to really implement IG in the proper way that's going to actually work. And then Infocon in the fall is taking those strategies and designing solutions. How do we implement those strategies? How do we bring those strategies to life? So as we go to Savannah, we're really focused on the strategy. The theme that we're running with this year is maturing your IG program. And that might sound a little trite. It might sound a little less strategic than it really is, but it really is strategic. A lot of companies, a lot of us are implementing IG, but we know we have a ways to go. We know we have problems to solve. So how do we make these programs truly mature? One of the other things that we're doing is all of the sessions are being curated to not only meet that theme, and of course address the strategic imperative that the whole conference is about, but we're tying those talks to that IGIM that you talked about, Jim, the information governance model. Because if the information governance model doesn't connect to the content of a session, then we might have to ask ourselves, why are we running that session? So we're not trying to force fit those sessions. We're not trying to force fit the model. It's not an academic gymnastics. We're not going to contort ourselves to fit that model, but the model actually works. The model really does work. So it's really driving how we're curating some of the content. What you'll see there will be sessions, of course, on artificial intelligence, of course, on Microsoft, but it'll go deeper into things like cybersecurity and data privacy updates and what do we expect in the world of privacy. There'll be a session on disaster planning and how do you and data readiness and data resiliency. So there are topics there that I think are interesting for anybody involved in an IG role, and many others, of course. The agenda is still being formulated, Jim, so I just revealed a few secrets, but there'll be more announced in the coming weeks. But that's a little peek inside. And if nothing else, you'll be right on the banks of the Savannah River. That area, if you've never been to that area, it is a fascinating area. It's so rich in history, and it's got such a character to it. that you can't help but have a great time while you're.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being there. I've never been to Savannah, so definitely looking forward to. I don't think I've actually even been to Georgia. I hate to admit, I've never been to Atlanta or Georgia, so it'll be a first. But I like that theme, maturing your IG program. I'm sure. I know the maturity model. There was just an announcement at Infocon about filling out our 6th annual maturity model survey. And it says the results will be released in the spring. So maybe they'll get released at InfoNext. I don't know. I'm not going to do any spoilers here, but it does say they're going to be released in the spring. And just so happens that the theme is maturing your IG program. So who knows, right? Maybe the individuals at InfoNext will have first crack at some conversations around the results. I don't know.
Well, a little bit of inside baseball, Jim. Yes, we've talked exactly about that.
Okay. I had no idea, honestly, full disclosure, but you put the pieces together, you see the releases and you actually read your emails, which many of us do not read our emails, but because listen, we do get a lot of emails these days, but no, definitely. I think that conference is going to be, once again, I think last year was my first time. I never went to an MER conference, but went to an InfoNext conference last year, and the experience was amazing. Can't wait to see you in Savannah. I'm sure I'll see you before then, but I'll see you in Savannah. Well, Mike, listen, I know we talked about a lot here. We could keep talking. I think we say that every time we have this conversation on the hot seat, but at some points, all good things must come to somewhat of an end at some point. So like a TBD.
There's no end. Let's just move on to the next chapter.
That's right. We continue the conversation. But before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience on this episode?
Yeah, the only thing, I'm going to go back to your first question about takeaways from Houston, from Infocon. And I'm going to go back to the discussion from Phil Plait, the astronomer. Not because I'm enamored with space as much as I am, but he talked about something that I think we can all sort of get into our minds a bit when we're thinking about the value of our jobs and the value of what we contribute to our organizations and how broad a mandate we really do have. He talked about spacecraft that are out in interstellar space. The Voyager 1 spacecraft is 15 billion miles from the Earth. It was launched 50 years ago. And we were talking on stage about managing and governing and using that data. And so I think there's a real connection that what we do, it extends from our phones in our pockets to spacecrafts that are 15 billion miles away and everything in between. And that's what IG is about these days. And that's what's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. I remember that point from his keynote. It was definitely very different than past years, but so insightful. I mean, how could you not listen to someone who studies space every day? I mean, it's one of those things. It's everybody says it's like a mystery, right? What happens up there? But he definitely gave us a glimpse, and there's a lot of similarities between information governance and spacecraft and what they're doing at NASA. So again, Mike, thanks so much for joining us today on the hot seat. Thank you for your time. To our audience, if you'd like to be a guest on the InfoGov Hot Seat, all you got to do is submit your information through our website, InfoGovHotSeat.com. And thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the InfoGov Hot Seat. Follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and LinkedIn. Check out our main website at InfoGovHotSeat.com to view our latest episodes and much more.